been 8 to 12 hours and the bread has been proofing in the fridge overnight. I've also preheated the oven to 500 degrees with the cast iron inside, and I'm going to show you guys two different types of equipment you can use to bake the bread. The first is a tall Dutch oven, and the second is a cast iron from Lodge that's a little more shallow. Before I take the cast irons out of the oven, you want to keep the oven closed as often as possible. I'm going to prep everything. So I've got my parchment paper, I've got my loaves, my cornmeal, brown rice flour or all-purpose. I've got my cutting device, a knife or a lame. And before I take the cast irons out, I'm going to dust the bottoms of my loaves with cornmeal or brown rice flour. Pretty generously because I don't want it to stick. Okay, so now I'm going to try to do this quickly but carefully. I'm going to take out the cast iron skillet. This is my tall one and that's very hot, so I don't want to touch it. I'm going to take my first loaf, and since I'm using the tall skillet, I'm using a piece of parchment paper. I'm going to drop my loaf out there. I like to add a little extra brown rice flour. It helps make the score a little more exciting. So if you don't have a lame, you can definitely use a knife. This is just to direct steam and allow the loaf to shape better. So I'm going to do a super simple cut here. I'm just going to kind of whoop. It's okay if it drags a little. You're just trying to direct steam with this. So I'm just beep, 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 beep. Nothing crazy. And then I'm going to gently pick the loaf up and I'm going to place it into the skillet. Remember, the skillet is hot, so I'm not touching it. I'm going to cover the skillet. This is going to be the steaming portion of the bake. And I'm going to send it back into the oven. I'm now going to put the oven at 475 degrees. And I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. Now, for the second piece of equipment, usually you'll be doing this one at a time, so this is a little deviation. But if you have this other type of Lodge pan, it looks like this with a taller top. This is ideal because you don't have to use parchment in this case. What I like to do is just make sure that my top is really well dusted, and I use a cutting board, kind of like a pizza peel. Again, I'm dusting with flour, and this time I'm going to use a lame, which is a blade. Ooh, there it goes. Which is a blade. They also, some of them come with handles. I personally prefer just the blade. It's a little easier to choke up on and get a better score. So everyone's kind of got their own style. I really like to do kind of these little flower guys. These are pretty fun. But really, again, this is just so that the loaf shapes well, and the scoring can be a definite fun part for you, but I wouldn't get too stressed about the first one being perfect. So now I'm going to place this gently into my cast iron skillet. I'm going to cover it, and then I'm going to quickly open the oven and get it inside. So these are both going to steam for 20 minutes. They're covered, and then after that, I'm going to uncover them. Okay, so our 20 minutes is up. It's been steaming, and now I'm going to take the lid off for the final part of the bake. So again, working quickly and carefully, I'm going to take out my cast iron skillets. You can see how it's risen. It's gotten nice and round. Oh, that looks good. That looks really good. Okay, now I'm going to put them back in. Lid off. And I'm going to bake it at 475 again, this time uncovered, for 10 minutes. Getting ready for the last 5 minutes of bake. I'm now going to rotate the loaves. For this red one, I'll just rotate the pan. Oh, that's not a fun sound. For this one, I'll gently rotate the loaf. And now this is the last 5 minutes of the bake at 450, and we'll see if it's at the right temperature. So the last timer just went off, and I'm pulling the bread out. It's looking really nice. I personally like the dark color. When you're cooking with whole wheats, you can get this really dark color because you're caramelizing the germ and the bran, and it's not all of the white endosperm. So now what I'm going to do is check and see if it's finished. And to do this, you can use a thermopen, a thermometer for meat, or you can knock on the bottom, which I'll show you after. So I'm just checking in a spot where it's least likely to cause a blemish. And I'm going for the largest part of the bread. It's at 211. We want it to be at least 205, 208 preferred. So these are both good. And then I'm also going to do the knock test to show you guys. So the knock test is just, it sounds hollow, which means most of the water has been evaporated in the bake. So this guy, I'm going to grab him out. Also good. And so these are our loaves, and you can see, you know, this isn't the prettiest of scoring with the knife. Maybe you'll have better luck than I did. The lame will definitely get you the best results. And yeah, they just need about 2 to 3 hours to cool if you have the fortitude. I have cut into loaves right when they're hot, and I haven't regretted it. They're definitely a little gummy, but they're still really good. So that is baking sourdough. And this will be good for a week. Sourdough has more longevity than regular yeasted breads. Since there's acid in it from the starter, you don't have to worry about mold as much. So I hope that you had fun baking sourdough. It's one of my greatest pleasures, and I hope that it gives you some too.